The life of Stephen King is one that bookworms like me eventually come to admire. Some of us have even begun to take inspiration from him through our own works. Perhaps even you have before. One thing personally that I admire about the life of Stephen King is not how esoteric it is, but instead how interesting it was. Many people before have asked Mr. King what inspired him to write such graphically horrifying stories, and the answer is always the same: nothing at all. Now you may see this answer as a cop-out, an unwillingness to think about it, or even just plain boring. But to me, I think it is more intriguing than any other answer he could have given. It makes me wonder how truly connected he was to the powers of writing. Was Stephen King born a good writer? Or is his literary genius something that can be learned, replicated even? This question alone inspired me to delve deeper into his life, one of the reasons you're watching this video. And through it, I want to show you what I have learned from this research. Some things may even surprise you. One of the biggest surprises that I found was Stephen King's undeniable writing stamina. In over 40 years of writing, he has produced more than 54 novels. In itself, that is a very noble feat. But what is even more astounding about this is that every single one of them was a bestseller. Of course, some are more famous than others, and you probably even know a few of them even if you're not a fan of King's works. The most notable ones include titles such as Carrie, Shawshank Redemption, Misery, Pet Sematary, and The Shining. One of the most recent books that I have read was On Writing, a memoir of the craft, and to say it was a great book was an understatement. What is also interesting to me is the inspiration behind some of these books. When explaining the inspiration behind the book It, he said a good idea is like a yo-yo. It may go to the end of its string, but it doesn't die there. It only sleeps. Eventually, it will roll back into your palm. The thing, however, that I feel draws people to these stories is not the fact that they are scary or creepy, but instead the road that they paved in American writing. You have to remember that most of these stories mentioned earlier came out in the mid-80s through the late 90s, before people could see anything and everything on a device the size of one's hand. These ideas were considered to be taboo, an agreed consensus from society that a handful of specific ideas were to be thrown out.
What, both on the superficial level, at the top level, not superficial, but at the very top, what is it that makes it so attractive, so it sells so many copies? Yours and others. What is it about the whatever? You don't call it horror, your work, horror. You don't call yourself a horror novelist for whatever reason. You
but
just said
okay.
suspect, but it's okay. I'm not suggesting you're putting it down.
Right.
You're not. But what is it that grabs an audience at the first level?
Forbidden. Something that's forbidden. So that you're saying to somebody, come with me and I will say things to you that nobody else will say. And I will show you things that nobody else
that are so horrible to imagine.
Show to you. That's right. And again, it shares the same attraction as comedy, which says the same thing. Comedy humor says comedy humor. Get me out of here. I just washed my mouth and I can't do a thing with it. But a movie that's really funny, that really makes people laugh, is generally saying, I'm going to show you something that you haven't seen before. So that when Mel Brooks did Blazing Saddles back in '74 or whatever it was, and the cowboys eat beans and then sit around the fire and they start to fart.
Right.
Well, nobody had ever heard anybody actually fart in a movie, and we all fell on the floor laughing. You know, it made that movie. So it was something that had been previously forbidden.
It is at this point in the video you may be asking, how do I become like the Stephen Kings of the world? And to you I say that is the easy part. Although there may not be a clear-cut strategy, there is absolutely one thing that is required. You have to write a lot.